All right, SML, welcome back to 2 Minute Drill, the season 52 episode. I got D-Muse here with me, and now it really does feel like we've done this one a lot. So hopefully this will be the last season 52 we have. You ready to get started on this, D-Muse? I know you were 10 minutes ago when we first started.
Yeah, let's go. Are you getting my audio this time?
Yep, got your audio. We're ready to go. Um, Actually, now that you said that, though, I'm going to adjust the levels because you probably just came in quiet there, and we almost had a mess up again. So we'll go ahead. You start with whatever team you want, and then I'll do my teams, and we'll go back and forth. Who do you got this time?
Yeah, I'm just going down my list. So I'm
Okay.
starting with the NFC South, and I have the Saints first. QB took the Saints. He's going to be sitting at 4-3 after the forced win for me goes through. He took a guy named Terrell Lewis in the free agent draft, who, according to Neon Sports, is not on his team. I don't know who that is, so I'm going to consider that a non-factor. He traded Marcus Davenport to me, the Cardinals, for a first next year. With the Saints cap situation, I know from experience there's almost no way to re-sign Marcus Davenport. So getting a first for him is about as good as you're going to do. And he also moved on from Demario Davis. He sent him to Prime, which hurts my soul, honestly, but I understand why it has to be done. He got back a second, fourth, and a future three. So he's going to be able to get a little younger, get some cheap contracts on the books for next year, which is when the cap situation's at its absolute worst. I expect him to hang around the playoff picture this year, but you will have to see how he navigates the cap in the offseason to see what his chances are next year. I know year two for me, I had like 25 guys on minimum
Gee,
contracts,
man.
but I also had attachment to some guys that I just didn't want to get rid of. So he might be a little better off, but I don't think it's going to be great either way.
Yeah, I think taking your favorite team that kind of hurts. Is you want to keep guys that maybe you probably shouldn't, but you get that attachment. But I would like to see him not do good this season. I have his first round pick, so if you did your part knocking him down a game, now if everybody else could just do the same, that would be great. That way, that pick is good, and then he can do whatever he wants the second season. But season one, need that first to be a non-playoff first. That would be ideal. All right, so then I'll go back to the Bengals, and Finn's sitting at 5-2. He acquired Scotty Miller, so he adds some speed to that wide receiver room where he's already got Jamar Chase is really his only fast guy. T Higgins and Tyler Boyd both kind of not slow, but they're not burners. They're not going to take the top off like a guy like Scotty Miller or Jamar Chase will. So I like that addition. And then he trades Samaje Perine to Dan for his second. Now I know Dan's second. Dan coming in with the Bills, the second is probably going to be a bottom three pick. Um, but Finns wasn't going to re-sign P Ryan anyway. He probably had no even thoughts to keep the guy. He probably had to look at the DM a second time when Dan said, "I'll give you a second for him," because that's a absolute steal. I think for him. I think Dan could have found a P Ryan in free agency somewhere, or at least close. So I think Dan or Finn's getting him is just an absolute steal. He's sitting at 5-2. He's got the extra pick. He can use that on defense now because those guys are getting older. And he's going to have his own cap issues to deal with once Burrow signs his new deal. Jamar Chase signs the deal. T. Higgins is coming up next season. Joe Mixon, a lot of big guys that he can't afford to just let walk are going to need deals. So I like getting the pick. He can focus on his defense with it. And like I said, 5-2 in the AFC North. That's a very winnable division. And right now he's sitting at the top of it.
Yeah, happy for Finns. Hope he succeeds with his team. He should, and I agree with the P Ryan trade. I would have been ecstatic to get a second rounder for him.
Yeah. All right. So what team are you up with next?
Yeah, I'm going to Meats and the Panthers. He's sitting at 4-3 right now. He took Zonovan Knight in the free agent draft, who I think he was trying to dev. He's 21 years old. He's injured right now. I had him on my list. I was kind of Cardinals don't have running back, so but Meats grabbed him. He traded. He made two trades. They're kind of connected, so I'm going to read both of them. He traded Chenault to Coop and the Seahawks for Marquise Goodwin and a second, and then he traded a third and Derek Brown to the Chiefs for a first and Kadarius Toney. So it's a long-winded way of like upgrading on Chenault with Kadarius Toney, but to do it, he had to get rid of Derek Brown. He did get a first from Woods, so that could be a decent first, but I don't think you're going to get anyone on the defensive line as impactful as Derek Brown with that.
Mm-hmm.
Marquise Goodwin still hanging around. He provides speed, but I don't know. I would have rather developed Chenault. He's pretty young. I think he's star dev. The Panthers don't have great weapons. I would have just hung on to him and hung on to Derek Brown. I value those. I value Derek Brown more than I value Tony in that first.
Yeah, to me, Derek Brown was one of those guys that's kind of just untradeable. Um, maybe it's just me, but I think a young defensive tackle is, especially one that's already 85 overall, is tough to replace. And I'm curious to see how he does replace him, because if not, you should just be able to run all over that team. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but next up, I'm going to go with the Browns again. And Noel traded a lot of the same deals. He took the Browns for a second time, so he knew kind of maybe what he should have done with the roster the first time around, maybe what he liked that he did, and he just kind of tried to redo it. He sent Kareem Hunt to Baltimore for a future second. I think that's a good deal for him. He gets another pick in the future, so he doesn't even have to worry about the cap on it now. Gets rid of Kareem Hunt in a position that he doesn't really need him anyway. And then he sends Greedy Williams to KC, gets a second and a fourth. Again, the fourth is in the future. Second is this year. But Greedy Williams was his number 3 corner. Now he can have Newsome, Ward, and he can even bring along that Emerson, which I think is going to be a decent guy. He's not a speed guy like Greedy Williams, but he should be a good cover guy. And it gets him a lot of picks, helps kind of relieve a little bit of the cap situation that he's going to have. He's going to go into the offseason with like $1.5 million to sign a bunch of guys, 2 of them being Clowney and Deion Jones. And I don't think he's going to be able to re-sign either. But getting these picks maybe will alleviate some of that down the road. And I kind of like what he did. I'm not a fan of trading in your division, but I think trading Kareem Hunt to Field for a second actually hurts the Ravens more than it helps them. So I think he did a good job there, kind of hurting one of his division mates and picking up a future second in the process. So all in all, I like the start for Noel. He's 1 game out of the lead at 4-3, so he's definitely still in the playoff hunt. We'll just see how long he can kind of maintain that with a Browns roster that's going to quickly fall apart if he doesn't do something, because that cap is really bad on that team.
Yeah, if you know the cap's bad, get draft picks. That's the way out.
Yep.
And I agree. I would rather face Kareem Hunt than a potentially develop J.K. Dobbins down the line.
Yep, absolutely. And Hunt's going to be more expensive because now he's got to re-sign him.
Yep.
All right. So next up for you?
Yeah, I have the Falcons and Mike. He's sitting at 2-5. This is a tough division for him. He took Andy Isabella in the free agent draft, so some speed for basically free. He traded. He used all his trades. He used all 3. So he traded a third for Tyler Boyd. Again, adding weapons to this team. They need it. Andy Isabella and Tyler Boyd are good gets on this team. He traded his future first, and his future third to Prime and the Chargers for Kenneth Murray and Asante Samuel Jr. It's a lot to give up, especially in a division as tough as this. He has QB, QP, and Meats as his division mates. But he did get high-end talent in Kenneth Murray and Asante Samuel Jr. That's about the best you could ask for in the draft, and he gets an extra year to develop them and compete with them. I don't hate the move. I never hate the move bringing in young talent. It's a for sure thing. You know what you're getting, whereas the draft you don't necessarily know. And he also traded a future second and Isaiah Oliver to the Vikings and Gutta for Christian Darrisaw, young left tackle. I think he's 23 and 80 overall. So I like that move too. He was able to get young talent for these draft picks. It seems like he kind of just sent all the draft picks on an exodus away, but he was able to bring in young talent. He wasn't bringing in like Band-Aids. These are guys that are going to be here for the entirety of the shortened cycle, and they're all talented. So overall, I like what he did. The Falcons are a fun team. They have some fun pieces. You have Pitts, you have Troy Anderson in defense. So
yeah, I like the Darrisaw trade because I think offensive line, especially this year, maybe more than any other time, does seem to matter. I can feel it running with the Eagles as opposed to the Jets. There's a big difference. I'm not as big on the Kenneth Murray trade. I do like getting Asante Samuel. I agree with you. You got a guy you're never going to get in the draft anyway. But I think Kenneth Murray probably not quite worth that top 5 pick. Oh, and that's it for our 2 minutes there. So moving on, now we've got the Ravens and Field, and kind of just talked about them. with Noel, because Noel sent him Kareem Hunt, and he lost that second round pick for him. Other than that, he hasn't really done much. It's pretty much just been that trade, and he's sitting at 2-4, so it didn't really help him. Pre blip, he was actually a playoff team, and now he's kind of come back to where we're used to seeing Field. 2-4, you traded your only move was Kareem Hunt. I don't really like that move. Like you said, I'd rather face Kareem Hunt than a developed J.K. Dobbins. You kind of already know what you're getting with Kareem Hunt. He's on the older end of the running back scale. Hell, I may try to trade for Dobbins if I don't keep Miles Sanders. But, yeah, I wasn't a fan of that move. I think he's got a lot of defensive pieces, and I would have probably moved one or two of those to try and bring in maybe a receiver, or even just some picks, because I got to imagine that Ravens cap is going to be a problem now that he just signed Lamar Jackson to 7 years and $300+ million. So adding a Kareem Hunt that you may not even be able to re-sign, and you give up a future second, that's tough, and it's not being reflected in the win-loss column either, as he's sitting at 2-4, making that pick even better, or look even better, since it is a future second. But if you're not winning now, next year's not going to look any better.
Yeah, I agree. Running back's not a position I need for this team. You have Dobbins and Lamar Jackson. So.
Yeah, I wasn't even counting Lamar Jackson as a running back like I probably should have, but didn't see it as a need. I know he had success pre-blip, so maybe he was trying to recreate everything that he had, and Hunt was part of that, but I would have seen that as a mistake to not make a second time. All right, so what team is next for you?
Yeah, Bucks and QP are going to round out the NFC South, and he's rolling at 7-0. Looking at the free agent draft and who he took, Montrell Meander. I had to do like a double take, wipe my eyes down, make sure I was reading this right. That's right. I had no idea who that was, so I went and took a look. He is a 27-year-old linebacker. He is 57 overall, but he has 90 speed.
Yeah.
So if QP's on him, he's probably okay. He used all of his trades. All of them were within the Thanos club. He traded a current and a future 3 to the Jets for Carl Lawson. I thought that was a good move. His third-round picks are not going to be very valuable. Carl Lawson's a useful end who will be useful for probably over half of our shortened cycle here.
Yeah.
He traded a future second and Scotty Miller to the Bengals for a current second. So that's likely a little move up in the second round, and you move up a year. I think he probably saw Scotty Miller as expendable. The Bucks are pretty loaded at receiver. And then he traded a second, a future fourth, and Sean Murphy Bunting to Klinke and the Texans for Desmond King, Jonathan Owens, and Davis Mills. This trade seems like overly complicated to me. That's like a lot of moving pieces. But I think the big thing is he moved on from Murphy Bunting, which is tough. He replaced him with Desmond King, who's a solid veteran fill-in. He's a little slower, but you can get away with that as long as you have speed elsewhere in the secondary. But Davis Mills sitting here probably behind Brady for a year before QP gives him the reins. I like him kind of getting ahead of the quarterback situation. If he likes Mills, I think he said he has him in a different league.
Yeah.
Because he's never going to be picking high-end first round. And when it comes down to it, and now you're without a quarterback, it's a lot harder to find one. So at the worst, you have Davis Mills. You have a good fallback option. Or maybe that's the full plan. But I like getting ahead of that year.
All right, that's 2 minutes on the Bucks. Next up, the Steelers. Steelers and Colt. Now, this one's tough because I think the trade he made was awful from just looking at it in a vacuum. Now, he is a Jags fan, and as somebody that's tried to get Justin Fields when I probably didn't need to spend as much as I did to try and get him, I can understand trying to get a guy that you really like and want to enjoy playing with. But, man, that was tough. So he added Trevor Lawrence, Zay Jones. He added the defensive end Smoot. He added Olawokon as linebacker, which is nice. He got, four guys that he likes that from the Jags, but he gave up 2 first-round picks, and this is Colts. So we're talking about top 10 picks. 2 top 10 picks. Hayward, a defensive tackle with I don't even know if he's a defensive tackle. He may be an end. I don't know what they list him as, but I'd put him at tackle with his inside stuff. And then Devin Bush, a really good young middle linebacker with with high speed and change of direction that's a really good user. Um, and that would be fine if he then had some success. But he's sitting at 30 or 3-4, 31st in points allowed. So he took that defense and took out two of their better players, and now they're 31st in points allowed. Probably shouldn't have traded all that defense. And then his return was Trevor Lawrence, his last game, 6 for 24, 79 yards, no touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I mean, you could probably do that playing quarterback with your kicker. But hopefully he's enjoying that 6 for 24, and he really enjoyed those 6 completions because he paid a lot for it.
I'm going to be a little less harsh here. If you think you're going to pick top 10 or around there every year, or wherever you think you're going to pick, and you don't think it's going to matter that much, like trade the picks for your guy. You got your quarterback in there. You're not going to succeed without a quarterback. So any
All right,
dreams
there's
of
2
taking it to the
minutes.
next level?
All right, who's up next for you?
Yeah, I'm going to the AFC South. I'm
Right.
going to the Colts with Dump. They're 3-4. He took Brian Edwards in the free agent draft, a younger receiver. He used all of his trades. He was very active, and I'll get to the big one last. But he traded Okereke to the Giants for a second. This might be the first time in SML history Okereke didn't return like 5 first-round
Yep.
picks. So, I don't know. Prime was probably rolling in his grave somewhere. But he also traded Grover Stewart to the Bills for a first and AJ Epineza. This is another case where I think Dan overpaid for someone that he wanted. I know he likes to pick guys that he likes things about them, and he's willing to pay whatever. Grover Stewart's a 28-year-old D tackle. Again, it's hard to find a D tackle in the draft, but you got younger with AJ Epineza, and you got that first-round pick to do something with. So I liked that move for Dump. And then the big one, he brought in a quarterback, much like you just went over with Colt. He traded 2 firsts this year and Kwity Paye to the Bears for Justin Fields in a third. Get your guy. I don't know. He's sitting at 3-4. Dump was probably hoping to have better success right out the jump for that, especially for that first this year that he's trading. Kwity Paye is a useful player, but get your quarterback. It's not Matt Ryan. It's not anyone on the Colts roster.
Yeah.
That's a disaster situation. So he got his quarterback. Let's see how he develops him.
Yeah, and so now I'm looking at my teams, and I can't decide which one I want to go with, but I'm gonna go with the we'll go with the Bills because the two that I was planning on going with both kind of play off of yours, but we'll start with the Bills. And Dan picks up P. Ryan, Grover Stewart. The other trade was Isaiah Simmons. He traded with you and gave up Edmonds, who he wasn't going to be able to, or didn't want to spend the money on re-signing anyway. He does have a couple really good rookies that he can use her. I like the picks. Like you said, though, I think he did overpay. I think it was just a matter of not wanting to waste time going back and forth. So if it really doesn't matter to you if it's a first or a second and a third, just offer the higher amount and get the deal done. And that's what he did. He gets Grover Stewart. He gets P. Ryan. Not that there was going to be much competition for P. Ryan, but I do think defensive tackle like Grover Stewart, I think they do come at a premium price just because I feel like it's just one of the positions that's a little tougher to develop. They don't get a lot of stats. They're more just run stuffers usually. And I think they come at a premium price. You don't see a lot of top end defensive tackles. So it's not super awful. And he is sitting at 5-1. Obviously sitting at the top of the AFC East, which is where he should be as the Bills. The one move I'm kind of surprised he didn't make is he picked up Simmons, so that's his safety, and he's kind of held on to Hyde and Poyer. I would have thought we'd see one of them move, being that he's probably not going to re-sign them. They're superstars, but they're tradable. He could probably recoup a decent amount of what he gave up if he were to move one of those, but he decided to hold tight.
Yeah, that is interesting. I never thought of that.
All right, so what team do you have up next?
Yep, I'm going to the Jags. He's 5-2. Got OBJ in the free agent draft, and he was the other side of that huge trade with Colt.
Yeah.
Don't know what his plan is at quarterback. He traded for Jimmy G as a Band-Aid. He traded a third and a fourth this year for Jimmy G. See how long he sticks with him. He has good draft capital now, and Devin Bush, and if Cam Hayward comes back, it's another good piece. Really, the only thing he gave up was Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Zay Jones was a fine receiver. Dwayne Smoot, he's a non-factor. And Aluakon, I mean, you replaced him with Devin Bush. So, yeah, I mean, he just has to figure out quarterback. The rest of that roster is really talented. This is the team I was hoping was going to fall to me in the draft when we did the restart. He's 5-2. Looking at it, I expect him to win division this year. We'll see how Clink can turn around the Texans and see how Dump does with Justin Fields. But I think Bean probably likes where he's at, especially if he's liking the way Jimmy G's playing.
Yeah, I think he's got to be the favorite in that division, and that team is just set up to they're only going to get better. And now without Trevor Lawrence, he doesn't even have to worry about signing a quarterback to a long deal with big money like some of these Burrow, Allen, all these guys.
Right.
Now he is going to have to find a quarterback, but outside of that, he should be set up for success and being a guy that played the entire last cycle with no quarterback. So it's not like that's something he really deems a priority. So next up, we've got the Dolphins, and Matt didn't really do much of anything, but he did add a Dallas second for some defensive ends, Sealer. I was talking to him last night, and he said when Grams asked for him, he didn't even know it was a guy on his roster. So clearly not somebody that was a big part of his defense, and to pick up a second for him is a pretty big move. He's sitting at 4-2, just one game behind Dan, so he's not even out of the AFC East. It's just going to be a little tough to overcome Dan and the Bills, but kind of what we've seen from Matt even last cycle. He doesn't make a lot of moves, and he didn't really make many moves so far going into this one.
Yeah, I would not expect him to make a move. He typically doesn't. So
yeah,
he'll have a lot of fun with that team.
Yeah, he's got plenty of weapons. Apparently, he wants to be a passer now. We'll see how that goes. But definitely the weapons there to throw to. It's just whether or not he can do it with Tua. All right. Next team for you?
Going to the Texans was Clink. Will Fuller reunion in the free agent draft. He had that big trade with QP again. He got Murphy Bunting from the Bucks in a second feature fourth, and then he traded some DN to Vaz Okoronkwo for a fourth. It's probably just I don't know. He's stacking up on draft picks. It's kind of what you have to do. It's going to be a long build. Unfortunately for him, he probably only has 5 seasons. We'll see how he does. It's a bad roster. I've watched maybe two of his games or pieces of them, and from what I've seen from the quarterback position, it's pretty bad down there. So this is going to be a tough year. He's going to ride it out. He'll get a good draft pick, and we'll see where he takes this team. He's a good team builder. He'll get out of it, but not high on expectations in year 1 and probably not year 2.
Yeah, the Texans team. Now we should have 5 seasons. I think before it's all said and done, we should be able to get 5 seasons in, which will be nice. But that's even with 5 seasons, it's going to be tough to do something with that Texans team. And then he traded Davis Mills, so he's even setting himself further back with the quarterback position. We'll see kind of what he does, but it's going to be, I think, a long cycle for Clink from a guy that was, thought he should be competing for Super Bowls. He's going to be trying to compete to stay out of the bottom half of the league, I think, with this Texans roster.
Yeah.
All right. So next team I'm going to go with is the Jets. Jets and DW currently sitting at 0-7. Only thing I think he's done is really moved Carl Lawson within the Thanos Club, which we've seen that become a common theme. They just kind of trade between each other. Probably should have done something else, though. You're sitting at 0-7. Got to find something else to do. I don't really have a ton to say about the Jets. He's under 5 yards per carry with Breece Hall. I don't know that too many movements would even help right now. He's just in a bad place, and that Jets roster is not that good. If you look, they have a superstar, and it's your right tackle, and he's got one ability, and it really doesn't matter. So he's got to try and get something going. The only good news is he's sitting at 0-7. He's probably going to have the number 1 pick. So maybe he can get something. If I was him, though, I would probably move that number 1 pick and try and move back and pick up somebody that's got multiple picks. You got a guy like Biz, who now has, I think, 3 first-round picks. Maybe trade Biz, that one, and pick up two of those picks, or maybe even all three of them, so that Biz can get his quarterback. Because that's the good thing about the Jets. If he doesn't mind Zach Wilson, he doesn't need a quarterback, and he's going to be right in that position to pick one. So that pick is going to have a premium price on it, I think.
Yeah, they miss you in New York, but you do not miss them.
No, not at
I
all.
think would be fair.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to the Titans next to
All
finish
right.
up the AFC South. That's Fig. He's sitting at 2-4. He couldn't help himself. He had to get his speed wide receiver. He had to do it. He traded me for Hollywood Brown. He traded Christian Fulton in 2 seconds. That's his second this year and his second next year. Really, I saw some people in chat saying he overpaid, but he wasn't getting him for anything less than that. So he did what he had to do to get a guy that he covets. I mean, he got a 25-year-old who's the fourth fastest wide receiver in the game, and one overall point away from getting the chance to get good abilities if he gets him with a superstar. So he got his guy. The Titans needed weapon, like they needed wide receiver. So we'll see. It's going to be a tough division, especially down the line once Clink figures it out for him. But I didn't hate the Titans. I think they have a pretty solid roster. We'll see how he does. But that was really the only move he made. He took Tolson in the free agent draft, but I'm not going to talk too much about that. So good luck, Fig. He's 2-4. We'll see. We'll see if he can hover around 500 this year. But I'm hoping that he loses out so that second is better.
Yeah, I will say that trade, 2 seconds and Fulton for Hollywood Brown because he wanted a speed guy. I would have, number one, I love that trade for you. For him, that seems like a bit of an overpay considering those 2 seconds. I bet he could probably have picked up 297 speed receivers and still kept Christian Fulton. I'm not a huge fan of that. I would have definitely given him Watkins for less if all he wants is a speed guy. But we'll see what he does. I just think those are going to be two picks that are going to be in the top 5 of the second round, and there's going to be plenty there that he could use on that Titans team, and now they'll be on the Cardinals team. All right. So next team I'm going to go with is the Patriots, Fig's old team. Now it's RD. He added Jordan Love, gave up 2 seconds in the process to Faz. He's sitting at 4-3. I'm not a fan of the trade. You've still got to develop Jordan Love. He's not starting good, but he is 4-3, so he's not bad. He's obviously already better than Fig was doing with the Patriots. The part that's kind of off to me is how are you holding on to Jordan Love and Mac Jones when there's guys out here with Kellen Mond as quarterback? I can't believe nobody wants Mac Jones, or he can't trade him. It just kind of blows my mind that we're sitting here with him having both of those guys and nobody's coming after him. I think maybe it's the throw power is kind of scaring guys away. I think there's a lot of guys that see low throw power and they think they're unusable, which you've proved is not a thing. But he's kind of sitting tight with the Patriots. Hasn't really done much with them. I would be surprised though if he doesn't move Mac Jones before the trade deadline.
Yeah, low throw power throws a lot of people off. I mean, you can work around it. You can develop them. It's better than Kellen Mond, better than Jacob Eason. So, yeah, I don't know. But I didn't love the Jordan Love trade either, but I'm probably a little biased.
Yeah, and you got to figure Mac Jones could probably be had for a fairly cheap price if he doesn't want him.
That's why I always did it. You pay less than you pay for other quarterbacks.
Yeah,
that's why I did it the last 2.
It's kind of like speed on a wide receiver. Everybody wants that high throw power, even though I'll tell you right now, I had Zach Wilson up to like 96 or 97 throw power, and I'd take those accuracy numbers over the throw power any day. All right. So next up, what team are you going with?
Yeah, I'm moving to the NFC West, my division. I'm going to start with the Niners, NYT. Really good roster, so not much you have to do. He took Kendall Sheffield, free agent draft, solid stopgap. He traded Jimmy G to the Jags for 3rd and 4th. Getting anything for Jimmy G is useful. There's no scenario where you're going to use him. It's going to be the Trey Lance show all day, every day. Maybe next Madden it'll be Brock Purdy, but for now it's Trey Lance. Just a little roster. I don't know what else to say. He has to be ecstatic that he was able to get this team. He's sitting above 500 here at 4-3. I haven't played him yet, so we'll see how that shakes out in the division. But yeah, not much to say.
Yeah, not too many moves. Like you said though, getting anything for Jimmy G is got to be considered a win. I do wonder. I haven't looked, but I wonder if he's got the mentor trade or whatever it is. Maybe that would be something that would hold a little bit of value. But Bean doesn't have a quarterback to mentor now anyway, so it doesn't matter. All right, moving on. I'm going to jump to the NFC North and go with the Bears and a team that you talked about his trade of Fields. So the Bears, he added quite a bit. He's added pretty much everything on defense, though. He added Kwity Paye. He added Javon Hargrave. He added Kelvin Joseph, who's his fifth best cornerback, by the way. And then he added 2 first-round picks from Dump as well. And he gave up Fields and then a couple later picks, like a third and a fourth. But not adding Kellen Mond, or not adding Kellen Mond and using him as your quarterback, not adding another quarterback is tough. Now, obviously, Dump didn't really have one, so you wouldn't want to just throw one in there. But it didn't seem like he has a plan for this season, and he's just content to ride it out and just get his ass beat 17 times. But it only happened 16 times maybe because he went 1-6 right now. I just can't believe he took this long to move Justin Fields after the pre-blip time too, and then this is all he gets for him. Dan's first and Dump's first is not nearly assured of being good picks. And then Kwity Paye, you still have to develop him. So we'll see what he does there. It seems like the tank is on in Chicago, but we'll see.
Yeah, one thing I'll say about Chicago is when we were blipped and unable to go, I was kind of missing the game, so I did an offline and I was seeing which team I wanted for the hardest rebuild, and they're actually the lowest overall rated team in the game. They're lower than the Texans, so you have to tear it down and you have to expect losses early on.
Yeah, the only thing they have is Fields, and I just would have liked to see a little bit better return. If a lot of guys, they do these trades and just put it out there that you're trading the guy. Don't kind of mess around and I might trade him and then take whoever comes up with a decent offer. Put it out there and let a bunch of offers come in. All right, that's it for our 2 minutes on the Bears. What team are you going to next?
Yeah, I'm going to myself. I'm just going to kind of give my perspective on my moves. I was very active right away. So I took Jamar Johnson in the free agent draft. Go Hoosiers. The only reason I took him. He went to IU, 22-year-old safety. I traded Isaiah Simmons to Dan, which you covered a little bit earlier, for Tremaine Edmonds. Yep. I needed help on the front seven. I had 3 90-plus speed safeties that were over 80 overall and under 25. So I had to move one. Isaiah Simmons was the best one, but I felt like getting Tremaine Edmonds really bolstered the front seven. He's young too. He's 24. So he'll be here for the remainder of the cycle, and I've been good with him so far. Traded future first for Marcus Davenport. Again, the front seven's a disaster. Marcus Davenport's the saint. Already got him a superstar. Feeling good about that one. And then the Hollywood Brown trade, I had to cash in on Hollywood Brown, knowing the value of guys like him historically, and I was able to do that with Fig. I got Christian Fulton, who I've already gotten from normal to star dev, but he's a nice young corner that I expect to be on my team for the remainder of the cycle. And I got 2 seconds where I'm hoping to find help on defense mostly, or offensive line. So those were my moves. It was fun to actually have a team that had like expendable pieces with value to be able to like bring in stuff to do some marquee trades.
Yeah, I think the Hollywood Brown move was probably my favorite one that you made, and it was one that really doesn't cost you a thing because you got, since the blip, you picked up Robbie Anderson. You've got Rondale Moore. You've got DeAndre Hopkins. Plenty of receivers. I mean, just overflowing with receivers and speed over there. And to move him for a corner, which you could have used, and then two high seconds is I thought that was a really good move. All right. So next up, going to be Paulie and the Lions. This one was kind of confusing. He picks up Callahan and Primes first, which realistically that's got to be the 32nd pick in the draft, and gives up Jeffrey Okudah. The Callahan, I think he's already like 29. I might be off on his age. I'm gonna pull it up and look at it, but he's an older corner. I don't think if I had to choose between the two, I'd rather have Okudah. Obviously, Uh, Prime would too, and that's why he gave up the first. But Callahan, already 30 years old. He's on the last year of his deal at 80 overall. He's going to cost a bunch, which not the price isn't really a big deal for the Lions. I just don't think you're upgrading much. Giving up Akuda, who's going to be there for a while and only improve, whereas Callahan's going to go down. But I guess sometimes you gotta pay your dues, and so he gave Prime a deal on this one. Interested to see how Prime's going to do with it because he's going to have to re-sign Akuda same year. He's got to re-sign Herbert. I don't know how much the Chargers roster and stuff has changed their cap situation, but Matt made it sound like they were pretty tight. So we'll see how signing a good corner is going to be. But not really a ton here. The Lions pretty set on offense outside of quarterback, but he's got KJ's first. He's got his first, and now he's got Prime's first. So 3 first-round picks. He'll definitely address the quarterback situation somewhere in there, whether it's moving up to get the one he wants or just sitting tight with KJ's pick, which should be high enough to get at least one of the best couple quarterbacks, depending on how that class looks. Haven't really looked at it myself, but kind of just sitting tight and seeing what he's going to do. I'd assume he's going to pick up some defense because the receivers and running back are really good. He does need a tight end, but just not too much going on in Detroit this season.
Yep, I have nothing to add, so I'm gonna move on to my next team, which is the Seahawks. Coop, he's sitting at 1-6. He traded Goodwin in a second to Meats for Chenault. I like that move. Bring in a young guy, star dev, 75 overall, that you know what you're getting instead of taking a chance in the draft. Get the extra year to develop them and see if you like them or not. The move I did not like was the move he made with Grams. He traded a future first for Zeke.
Yeah.
You have Kenneth Walker on the team, so I don't fully understand it. Zeke's only star now. He doesn't even have abilities. He's expensive, and love you, Coop. But that first is going to be a high pick. So I don't know. I actually have no justification for this. I thought this might have been the worst trade made so far.
Yeah, I think it's an awful trade. It makes no sense, and but we've seen Coop do other things that don't make sense, like cutting Tyreek Hill, and we'll just see what happens. But this was one that was definitely tough to approve.
Chaos.
Yeah, apparently. All right, moving on. I'm going to go to the Packers, and we've got Faz. He ended up adding 2 seconds and a third, moved Robert Tonyan and Jordan Love. This is a team that's also got their cap issues, especially as long as Rodgers stays. 2 seconds for Love, I think, is pretty good. The only thing I worry about, and to me, everything hinges on Rodgers. If Rodgers stays a couple seasons, then I like the trade. If Rodgers does what he did to Meats and he walks the first season, that's going to be tough because now you've got no quarterback, no early pick. But if anybody's going to be able to develop a lesser quarterback, it would be Faz. But he's got a really good defense on that team. He does have some young offensive pieces in Watson, Dobbs. Those two guys could use a quarterback to develop, and hopefully for him, he can do that this season with Rodgers. Because once Rodgers is gone, it may get a little tougher passing. But to me, it just depends on Rodgers. Everything's kind of hinging on what he does. Right now, he's sitting at 6-1, and that could be where he is. The rest of the time he's got Rodgers, but going from Rodgers to anybody else is already going to be a bit of a drop, and you don't really have anything early to replace that with.
You're exactly right. That's all that hinges on Aaron Rodgers, and I'm excited to see how he navigates that.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch. And then, like I said, the cap is an issue with them too. So I know he's got some guys to re-sign. We'll see how that goes. But kind of interesting to watch how he's going to do it as opposed to what Meats did. That's I guess the good thing about the blip is we can see immediately how somebody would do something different, and we'll see what he does there. All right, next team for you.
Yeah, my last team in the NFC West is KJ, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. He took Everson Griffin in the free agent draft, just veteran depth along the D-line. He went back to the Rams. He saw the writing on the wall that he was going to pick last. I think he would rather go back there and at least have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. Stafford took a big hit in the blip. I think he's down to star in like 72 over 75 overall or something like that. So That's tough. I think he's rolling with Mayfield. Um, I don't know. I mean, it's just a tough spot. You know, on first round picks, you have a lot of expensive contracts and not a lot of depth and talent. You have some high end guys, but nothing really after them. So um, we'll see what KJ does. He's been quiet, no trades or anything. Um, yeah, nothing else to add.
Yeah, not really anything you can add when he hasn't made any moves. Um, we'll take a second to everybody should be thanking Monty though, because if he didn't take take one for the team and give up the Panthers to take the Broncos, because basically that's what he was doing. That list of guys that kept their team was probably would have crept all the way up to at least where QB was. All right, so moving on. My last team in the NFC North is going to be Gutta and the Vikings. He went back to the Vikings. The only things he's done, he moved Oliver, or picked up Oliver in a second, and got Darisaw. I like it. Like we said, the offensive line kind of does matter. At least it seems like it this season or this cycle. So I like the move. I'd still like to see him get a little younger on defense, because I think that's where he's gonna notice that team falling off first, is on the defensive side, and hopefully he's got some type of plan for Kirk Cousins, because I don't know if Cousins is the answer there. And you've got some nice offensive pieces. I'd hate to waste them while Cousins is there. Although I think he got a little bit of an upgrade since the blip, so that was kind of worked out for him. But right now he's sitting at 2-4. This is a guy that came out to an early start where he was really hot this cycle, and now has kind of fizzled off at the end right before the blip, and it's kind of carrying over now, and he's sitting at 2-4. So we'll see what he does going forward.
So the answer is not trading 2 first round picks for Malik Willis.
Yes.
Do not do that
yes,
again.
Don't do that. All right. It's the next team for you.
Yep, moving to the AFC West. Going to start with TTS and the Raiders. Terrible two-step. He's 1-4. He took Tyler Sheldman in the free agency draft, and he made another trade that I did not love. He traded you a second-round pick for Fletcher Cox. I liked it for you. Cox is taking a hit. He's a big name recognition, but his overall and abilities aren't the same as what they once were, and that's going to be a really high second. So, for kind of a stopgap option on the defensive line, that I don't know if he retires quick or what Fletcher Cox's deal is, but yeah, I mean, questionable team building when you're sitting at 1-4. But he went back to the Raiders, another guy at the bottom of the draft who decided it was better to keep their team. Hard to fault him. Not much to add. Nothing else to add for me.
Yeah, and he kept the team that got significantly better, and he got Crosby and Chandler Jones both with edge threat elite. And kind of the reason I went to him with Cox, I looked at guys that had good off or defensive lines but a need at defensive tackle, and putting Cox in between Crosby and Chandler Jones should make that defensive line a lot better. So I don't hate that trade for him, especially because I was on the other end of it. But Cox does still have under pressure, which is, in my opinion, one of the better abilities that you get on the defensive lineman. Obviously, it's not inside stuff or even no outsiders or edge threat, but I like the under pressure one, especially if you go up against quarterbacks that already have the paranoid trait. Now you get them under pressure from further out, and then with the two guys he's already got, I think that's going to hopefully for him improve his record. But obviously, selfishly, I'd rather he doesn't. All right. So next up, I'm going to go with the Commanders in the NFC East. And Doink, I thought he got a steal here. He traded Cameron Curl for Albert O. Curl, basically just a sub linebacker, which everybody can go in free agency right now and pull out an equivalent sub linebacker that you're going to use her, and they'll be as good, if not better, than Curl. And he got one of what I think is the better tight ends in the game because of his speed, Albert O. So I think that's a really good trade. And we see the groups kind of trading with each other. You had the Thanos Club all just shuffling guys back and forth, and then now you got the Primer posse. They're making a trade there. But he's sitting at 3-4. I don't think anybody thought Doink would be at 3-4 this early in the cycle, but that's where he's at. And we'll see. He's got huge trade block, but can't seem to pull off any trades. Rumors circulating around that he's not very easy to trade with, and I think that's probably hurting him a little bit.
Doink, you're one of my favorite trade partners. Don't let the rumors get to you. Um, but if you're done there, I'll move on to Monty,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is the other side of that trade.
Okay. Let's.
So yeah, so he took the Broncos again. He basically gave up the Panthers to get the Broncos. Questionable, but just didn't want to redo the same thing. Took Tavon Young in the free agent draft. He's 5-2. So he's making good use of the roster. Um, and that's the only trade he made. He traded Alberto for Cameron Curl. I'm going to defend the Cameron Curl trade a little bit.
Okay.
I know his speed is low, and you can find like a safety who might be a little faster that you could use or put in the sub spot, but he has a good overall. He has good like attributes. So theoretically, you could play off of him if you have another guy that you're using. I haven't been watching his defense, so I don't know how he's utilizing him. But theoretically, you could leave him be more so than some of those other guys that you would find in free agency. Um, and I don't know. He thought Alberto was expendable, so he moved him. I don't know. This is all going to be about navigating the salary cap with Russell Wilson's
Yeah.
contract. You can't get off of it. He took a big hit, rightfully so, because of the blip. And what are you going to do at quarterback? Are you going to ride aging Russell Wilson with superstar with, I don't know, who knows where his overall is going to go after this year? He's 75 and he's going nowhere but down. So that'll be what to watch with this team. But I mean, they have a good roster to win year one. They have a good defense, and Russ is usable at least year one. So it's not so much about this year for Monty. I'm just interested to see what he does in the future.
Yeah. And I think we say the Broncos were the last team taken, and I don't think they're as bad as they were kind of made out to be. I know they have a little bit of cap issues with Russell Wilson, and he's knocked down a bit, but they do have a decent roster, and I think Monty's showing that with his 5-2 record. QB made the playoffs with him twice before the blip, and beat Prime to end the pre-blip cycle. So I don't think they're quite as bad, and Monty's doing all right. That's our 2 minutes for that one. So I'm going to go to the Cowboys. And this one going to be pretty quick because Graham's made two moves recently, and that's about it. But he got a first for Zeke. That's a pretty good move because he's already got Pollard. So I think that works out very well for him, considering it's going to be probably a top 5 to 10 pick. He traded Kelvin Joseph to Biz, which I think that's another good move for him. It's a guy that's probably not anywhere near the field, and he's going to get a pick for him. And then the only thing I don't understand is he picks up this defensive end from Matt, who nobody really knew about. I looked at him; he looks okay, nothing spectacular, but he gave up a second for him. We'll see how it works out. He does need to improve his run defense because right now his run defense is pretty bad. Although he was still able to pull out the win, he gave up 190 yards rushing to Miles Sanders. So he's got to do something about that run defense, or guys are going to run all over him more than they already are. And it's quiet off season. Graham's usually pretty quiet. He doesn't make too many moves, it feels like. But he did have to do something to improve that 32nd ranked run defense. And I think he's at least made an attempt to do that. I think we'll see him do more of that in the offseason.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that Zeke trade, the first round pick, that had to be just Graham's a Cowboys fan, didn't want to trade Zeke at high asking price. But
Yeah.
again, great trade for him. I don't like it for Coop.
Yep. All right. So next up for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to Woods and the Chiefs. He's sitting at 3-4, so right under 500. He took Bulaga in the free agent draft to try to get some veteran help on the O line. I liked that. I mean, he's a good tackle. He traded, again, we're kind of repeating trades at this point, but traded a second and future fourth for Greedy Williams, trying to bolster the secondary. We'll see where that second round pick lies, but I think that's a pretty good move. You know what you're getting. Corners go pretty high in the draft. And the first in Kadarius Toney for Derek Brown. The third, really like that for him. So he's bolstering the defense a little bit with Greedy Williams and Derek Brown, and not deciding to trust the draft to get the help there. So overall, I've liked what he's done. I don't think Kadarius Toney is needed. You have Mahomes. I think you could make almost anyone work at wide receiver. So, I mean, unfortunately for him, he has Prime and Monty in this division.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough for him to win games consistently.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for him. I do like you said, the Toney trade. Um, we'll see what he does. That's just a really tough division, and he's gonna have his work cut out for him. All right. Next up, I'll go to my team in the NFC East, and we basically only added picks, added a second, a third, and a fourth for Cox and Hargrave. Basically, felt like I had an overflow of defensive tackles. Those two guys, probably two of my better ones, um, but Jordan Davis, obviously, if you look at the list of defensive tackles on the Eagles, he's the number one guy. Um, Maybe not the number one overall, but being a rookie and already superstar and having inside stuff, he was getting the most playing time. And then Hargrave not going to be able to be re-signed anyway, so he had to move. And then Fletcher Cox, you kind of hit on it. He had the name recognition. He was superstar. Name recognition wasn't going to cost me a bunch in cap penalty or anything, and I felt like I could get a really good return on him. And I think a two-step second is pretty good. And what we're basically trying to do is just free up cap space and get some rookie contracts because looking at the Eagles salary cap, you got a lot of guys that go from like 6-7 million to like 20 million fast. So before that hits, we want to have some rookie contracts so that we can absorb that increasing in cap. And I think we're doing on pace to do pretty well. Might have one more trade up our sleeve before the trade deadline, but we'll see if anything comes through with that.
Yeah, good rosters are expensive, and you hit me up for a D tackle early on. I looked
Yep.
at it; you had like 60 tackles, better than anything I had. So that was definitely an area of strength for the
Yeah,
Eagles.
definitely loaded there. What I do like though, they came with two mentors in Sue and Limball Joseph, so that helps Jordan Davis even more. And I made sure I kept those two guys just to keep that mentor XP stack if it actually works. All right, so your last team?
Yep. I did not save the best for last, Prime. Don't let this get to your head, but we're going with Prime and the Chargers, 7-0. Didn't go back to Indianapolis. I was in the car, looked at my phone. I was in shock, and he just continues to do it. I like all of these trades for him. He took John Ross in the free agent draft. Just always a useful Madden receiver. He traded a second, a fourth, and a future third for Demario Davis. Those draft picks are not going to be good. They're going to be very late in those rounds. And Demario Davis is an X factor linebacker, and he hangs around for a few seasons. He traded Kenneth Murray and Asante Samuel to young guys, but he gets 2 premium firsts from Mike and a future third. And like you said, he got Okuda for Callahan and a first. So I I don't know. He doesn't value draft picks, and he shouldn't because he's always picking at the end of the round. This team's loaded. He added high-end talent in Demario Davis and Okuda. He shipped some out, but he's going to replace them with high draft picks, which you can get. They're cheaper than paying the guys whose contracts are about to come up. So just well done all around. Herbert and Eckler and that whole team is just going to win, 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 win with Prime for these 5 seasons. And he has to have his eyes set on one thing and one thing only, and that's Lombardi. Nothing else will cut it.
Yeah, anything less than I think he's going to hear it quite a bit because you just took the best team in the league. So if you can't win it, I'm sure there's going to be lots to be said about that. One thing that he's made some good moves. I'm interested to see, and I said it before, how he navigates this cap situation because not only is he adding guys like Okuda that need to be re-signed, those picks from Mike are going to be top 5 picks, and they're going to come at a price. So we'll see how he navigates that. I'm interested to watch it. All right. And that means our last team is going to be Tiny Titans and the Giants. And not really a lot of moves here, but he did probably have the deal of the cycle, getting Okereke for only a second. Because like you said, he's never gone for less than a first or multiple firsts. I mean, we've seen DK Metcalf in a trade for him. We've seen multiple firsts in a trade for him. So getting him for a second is an absolute steal. And so Tiny might have won the offseason with that. And then he adds Robert Tonyan after they lost Ingram. Getting a tight end was a priority, I think, for the Giants. He does have a rookie there that's okay, but Tonyan, a guy that's pretty good. We'll see if, unlike whoever got him last time, if he actually lasts more than a season and doesn't go right back to the Packers. But not a bad start for Tiny, other than the 1-6 start, which is absolutely bad.
Yeah, no, you hit everything right on the head. 1-6 is not where you want to be, but
Yeah, we'll see what he
we'll see.
does going forward. But yeah, like you said, not exactly where you want to be. But he did have the steal of the offseason in an Okereke for less than a first. So with that, then that's gonna do it for the 2 minute drill. And we hit it just under an hour, so we didn't quite use 2 minutes on everybody. Some guys, well, 2 minutes is probably more time than they spent doing their roster. So uh, we'll see how
Yeah,
it pans out for some of these teams, and then we're what if we're in week 8 today, then we're only a few more weeks away from the off season and seeing more moves happen. So we'll be prepping our 2 minute drill for that as well. Unless you got anything
yeah.
to
I had to
add.
let. No, we just had to let this breathe, let some moves happen before we could do an episode,
Yeah.
given the blip situation. So it was fun, and we'll be back after the off season.
Yeah, I think this is probably a good time for it. It's right around the trade deadline. That way we get all our off season moves and trades, and seems to have worked out. But we'll see what everybody does. Maybe somebody will prove us wrong with one of these deals. Maybe Coop goes out and runs for 3,000 yards with Zeke, or gets a
Yeah, I think I play Coop. I think I play Coop next week. I'm gonna rescind the worst trade of the cycle comment that I
until after
made,
the
and
game.
yeah. Well, I'll come out with my final verdict after the game.
All right, that sounds good. I'm gonna wait to see what he does with Kenneth Walker too. He may move him for a nice haul, and then it doesn't look as bad.
Yep.
But all right, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you didn't just skip to your team and then turn it off. But that's why we put Prime at the end. That way he'll have to listen to everybody before he hears his team. All right, guys, thanks for watching.